Joining us now with more information is Captain Mark Weiss. He's a pilot who is trained to fly through combat zones. Mark, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
The obvious question is, why would this pilot fly over a war zone when the United States Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, had barred U.S. planes from going in this area?
Well, not all airlines around the world follow U.S. FAA guidelines. There may have been reasons for that. We've heard before that they had taken other flight paths around there. Potentially there was weather delays, there could have been other congestion delays, and this may have been an air traffic control routing. So there could be a variety of reasons.
Is there any altitude that is safe when a pilot is flying over a war zone?
Yeah, on the ground. No, you're in a war zone, and potentially all the airspace is dangerous. You'd hope that civilian aircraft are not targeted, but apparently this may have been the case where it was. We don't know yet, and it's easy, very easy, to jump to conclusions at this point. So we still have to be cautious until we get the forensic evidence and to determine that it was a missile.
What about the debris pattern? How significant or does that play a big role in the investigation?
It plays a very big role in any investigation. If an airplane breaks up in the sky, it's going to have a very wide pattern, a distribution pattern, and very different pieces. Whether or not the wings came off and came into one area, a tail may have come off, as opposed to, say, something closer to the ground where you may not have had an explosion. And then your debris field is going to be much more limited.
Are pilots trained to deal with these types of situations? I mean, what is a pilot supposed to do? And is there any kind of detection device on the plane that could help a pilot?
Most commercial airlines around the globe, and there are exceptions, do not have infrared detection systems or systems that would deter or deflect missiles coming at them. There are some airlines around the globe that do have them, but Malaysia or U.S. carriers are not any of them. As far as the training that you get, there really isn't training on how to avoid a missile. This isn't a military aircraft that you can maneuver. This is a commercial airliner that you have to handle very gently because you've got passengers in the back of the aircraft.
And we're hearing that the crew did not report any problems. How significant is that?
Well, think about that for a second. We go back to some of the other incidents that we've talked about, that Malaysia 370, that we've all been experienced. Was there an emergency cry? Was there a Mayday call? That would indicate that there was a problem on board the aircraft that was now being dealt with by the crew and being transmitted to air traffic control. The fact that this happened instantaneously really has to make certain things suspect. And certainly terrorism on board the aircraft, we really, that's one thing we haven't really talked about. But one of the areas that we keep in mind is that the underwear bomber a few years ago came out of Amsterdam. And so we don't know if there was an internal explosion on the aircraft or if it was a missile at this point.
And what about the data recorder, the so-called black box? What will that reveal? Can that actually show what happened exactly?
Well, I think what you're looking for in the black box, and not the exacts that you're talking about, what you're looking for is, there are two of them. We're talking about the voice recorder, the cockpit voice recorder, the CVR, and that's going to be able to determine what the pilots were talking about, whether there was any type of communication on board that would indicate that they had that problem right away. And certainly if they talk to air traffic control, the flight data recorder, the voice recorder would indicate that. The flight data recorder is going to tell you that we're at 10,000 meters plus, whatever it might have been, at a certain heading, at a certain speed, and all of a sudden we weren't. This airplane just doesn't fall out of the sky. Commercial airliners don't fall out of the sky unless they're shot down or exploded out of the sky.
And clearly investigators are going to have their hands full trying to determine what happened. What is the first thing they have to do in their investigation?
Well, the first thing is they've got to get to the wreckage site, and they're going to be able to determine a lot from the soot patterns, the burn patterns, the debris field, whether the tail or the wings were separated very far from the fuselage, the bodies, what kind of condition they're in. They're going to check the passenger records. Who was on board that aircraft? They're going to check the voice tape in the cockpit, find out if there was anybody in the cockpit that could have done some damage. Very much like what we thought about with Malaysia 370.
Let's go to my colleague, Jim Spellman, in the newsroom. Jim, are you there?
I am here, Asiya.
Well, go ahead.
Sure. So, Captain, one of the questions I have is, will they be able to review the radar records and see if this plane made any sort of sudden movements ahead of time, as if it was perhaps interacting with another aircraft in the sky?
Can you hear Jim Spellman's question? Jim, go ahead and repeat your question. We're going to try to work on the audio, or I can repeat it for Mark Weiss.
Will they be able to review the radar records and see if this airplane made any sudden movements in the sky as if it were interacting with another airplane?
Will they be able to review radar records for this plane to figure out what kind of maneuver, if any, it made? Is that what you're saying, Jim?
Yeah, especially if it interacted with another plane in the sky, if perhaps there was an air-to-air missile used.
Yeah, and that's true, Jim. They'll be able to determine from the radar track. But they're also, remember something, that's an area that there's going to be a lot of satellite imagery. So they'll be able to tell a lot just from looking at that. The intelligence agencies around the globe are going to be looking at that. Remember, these planes probably had a lot of different country citizens on board.
Mark Weiss, Jim Spellman, thank you so much.